here. Pizza Express in Soho, Marcus Anderson. It's a great pleasure to meet you.
Oh, thank you.
And you have an album called Style and Substance. I'd
Yeah.
like to sort of reverse the order of that and talk about substance before style. Or should it be the other way around?
No, whatever you want to touch first. You know, I always I put style meets substance first for a reason, because everybody always see the style first, and they hear the substance, which is the music later. But if you want to flip it and take the substance, hey, I'm okay with that.
Because I think as a jazz musician, it is all about substance, but you have broken the rule by adding style to substance, by introducing dancing and effects. But we'll come back to that. So let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
So I want to know all about you, to quote a song. You started in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Tell me about your sort of early days of upbringings there.
Well, I'm the youngest of 7, and I grew up in a household where there was always music going on. There was always singing, dancing, taking out pots and using them as drums. And my mom and dad listened to a lot of Motown music, so Otis Redding, Marvin Gaye, Smokey Robinson, you know, The Temptations, all that good music from Motown that came out that was kind of, it was instilled in me at an early, young age. So I loved Stevie Wonder growing up. I loved a lot of those people, and I had those influences. So if you think about a tree, and you think about the sap from a tree, and it's starting from the top and trickling on down, and it grabs all this stuff and pulls it. By the time it gets to the bottom, it has everything that pretty much was at the top and on its way down. So if you think about my family tree, my mom, my dad, my sisters, my brothers, all that, I'm the baby, all that kind of came down, and like, in a sense, I'm what's left over from the sap. So they had so many different things that they did, like singing, the dancing, the playing multiple instruments, that I kind of grabbed a little bit of all of that, you know, the singing, the playing, and all that good stuff, which is why sometimes people say I may do too much. But blame my parents, blame my family. Don't blame me.
It's safe always to blame your parents for things.
Yeah, if something goes wrong or there's a genetic defect, I blame my mom and dad.
And I was looking at some work by Richard Branson, and he wrote an article about how, in fact, families like sap, you know, the apples don't fall far from the tree. And in fact, you know, so I know you learnt a lot from your parents in the same way as he believed that he learnt a lot from his. And you were surrounded by jazz, weren't you? And your mother was sort of the more the sort of dancey side. Or tell me about the parents then, how they sort of sort of imbued you with music and jazz in particular.
Yeah, my mom and dad they both sung, but my mom was more of a piano player. She would sing. We had an organ in our living room, and she would play and sing, and I would just sit and watch. And my dad, he would take me and sit me in front of his bed and say, listen to this music. And I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was music without words.
What age were you then?
I was probably
Roughly
11, 12. You know, I hadn't yet, I think, gotten to middle school. And my dad he would say, you know, you're going to play the saxophone and you're going to be great. He used to tell me that all the time. And then, like, when things started happening, he forgot that he told me. And I reminded him last year. I said, Dad, you remember when you used to tell me that I'm going to be great and I was going to travel and see the world and these hands were my tool? And he said, no, I said that? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, okay, well, good job.
But isn't that a nice way to learn, not to have it rammed down your throat, but to predict the result without actually forcing it upon your children? I think that's Sheila E. said something similar, how she sat listening to her dad playing the stuff, and it sort of leaked into her. There was no learning by writing down in her case. I don't think it was like osmosis. But I know you read music as well. So did that come later for you?
It did. I actually struggled through school learning how to read music, and I didn't properly learn how to read music until college. So I kind of faked my way all the way through school because God had blessed me with such a great ear that I could hear, you know, a song once or twice and be able to play it, and I could recognize where it went in the sheet music. So in a sense, I knew how to read music, I knew how to guide through it, but to sit down and just like know the fractions of what note value got what, I didn't know that right on until I got to college and I started studying with my professor, Dr. Wiggins and Branford Marcellus. They kind of helped me to really learn how to be a better jazz musician.
So it's the both and thing. It's having the intuition and the ear and some formality to understand why the ear works. So you've got the both of this. I'm really jealous because I can't read. I can see music, but I can't read it.
Oh, well, you know.
But I can play it. But, that's genuinely clever, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like being a spiritual scientist.
Spiritual scientist.
You know, you got like all the sophistication and the understanding of how everything works, but then you have like the other side that you can kind of tap into to justify everything that you study.
Okay. Now, I know you're influenced by people like James Brown, Prince, you're on the record with those people, but I also, in my own sort of reading of your music, I keep hearing George Benson in it and other things. So what don't we know about your influences? You mentioned Otis Redding as well, but I mean...
Yeah, George Benson wasn't a major influence, but he was definitely one of the guys that I listened to because he falls into that jazz genre. And along with George Benson, Norman Brown was a big influence because they're very similar but different in a way. And that sound for the jazz community or for the contemporary jazz community was very, very big at the time that I was learning music. So you probably would hear whispers of like George Benson and other people like Kirk Whalum in my sound or my style of music.
But I mean, also George is actually almost like a philosopher of music. He talks about, I guess, being centered as a musician and having, he doesn't use the word flow, but I think, those ideas of having a sense of flow. You were mentioning in another interview that some nights there's a sort of magic that happens.
Oh yeah.
But you can't just recreate that, but that sense of when it's magical, I mean, it seems to be something of the higher order of spiritual musicians that kind of are connected to something. I mean, how does that work for you in terms of, are you aware even of how you have a good night?
Yeah, like there are moments, it's almost like, how can I explain this? It's almost like being off the track and then being on the rails and like kind of just flowing smoothly with it instead of just trying to guide your own way. If you're playing and not putting so much of the mathematics of the notes into it and you kind of feel what the musicians are doing around you and the energy's good and the crowd is giving you that energy, you can kind of feel it going back and forth and you kind of, it's almost like a bubble or aura that comes over you and you kind of fall into, I don't want to say a trance, but you feel it.
I completely understand as a musician, but we can't write it down on sheet music, can we?
No, you can't write that. No, you can't write it down.
I remember you saying it also isn't just down to the individual, because some nights other people have been out for a longer night the night before, and it's an interactive system, isn't it? So you play off for one another and feed off of that.
Yeah, it's good to to feel that naturally. Some musicians that may have done drugs or do drugs, try to tap into that. They need that, but like me necessarily and the musicians I play with, they don't need that to get to that level, that hierarchy of music.
Now, adrenaline is a pretty good
drug.
Oh,
yeah, it is.
and endorphins.
Yeah.
Coming on to endorphins and not sex, but sax, then, I hear a beautiful melancholy in some of your notes. I mean, tell me something about your style of playing or what you bring to it, because you've got these tremendously complicated runs of arpeggios, and then you also bring these beautiful motifs.
Yeah. I started off singing first before I even picked up the horn, and a lot of people that I like to listen to that are my influences that don't play music are vocalists, and I always try to take a vocal approach when I play a melody. Even when I solo, I can go and add a couple of notes, and I can play a lot of jazz and different straight ahead notes, but I choose to take the more melodical approach of just being a vocalist through my horns with my instrument. Because I feel like that's what people understand, and that's just what I like to play. If you have someone that tries to sing a whole bunch of notes, sometimes it'll impress them, but if you do too much of it, you lose them. So you have to have a good balance between playing something that they like to hear and then playing the sophisticated side of the music.
Yeah, because that reaches different people, doesn't it? The sort of the runs and things reach a different part of the audience than the thing that hooks you, the sort of that thing. Because in the song All About You, you've got that beautiful cadence, I suppose we could call it, and I'd like to get you to play that later on. But there's also this other one, Carson's song. Seems to has, I feel that has a story behind it, but I don't know what it is. But it has a beautiful lilt and just a lovely feel about it. I'm sure there's something that sits behind the instrumental, because you mainly write instrumental music. That's another unusual and beautiful thing, because you haven't got lyrics to work to think what is it about. Is there a story behind that song, Tom?
Yeah, I write songs based off of experiences and then like just my life journey. I've been blessed to have two beautiful daughters. Carson being my oldest, she's 7.
Right.
So
when did you write the song?
I wrote it for her, I think when she was around 3 years old.
Okay.
And she loved it. She cried the first time that she heard it.
And she said, Dad, remember when I cried? I was like, you remember that at 3? She's like, yeah. I don't know, I liked it. So I wrote it for her because I love my daughters. They bring me joy. They make me very happy. Part of the reason that I do this and travel is for them. You know, I enjoy playing, I enjoy music, but I want to be able to take home my experiences on the road and say, hey, I went here, I went there. And they say, well, tell me about this place. How are the people? You know, I give them like amazing stories of places that I've been. And then every time I go to a city, I grab a snow globe, I send it home and say, hey, I got a snow globe from London, I have a snow globe from Switzerland or Germany. So I always try to take my experiences and bring them home so they can be exposed to what I haven't been exposed to and not be so close-minded when it comes to the world and certain ways of thinking.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I felt a centeredness in that. I'm not saying there's not in others, but I felt there's a root in this somewhere.
Oh yeah, there's
and
always
you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, through the
Always.
song.
In every song, like there's a reason, there's a meaning behind every song. No song is just written. I was feeling a certain way or I was going through something that caused me to write a song or to collaborate with someone to write a song.
Okay. So I want to get you to play a motif for us in a moment. Is that okay with you?
Yes, sir.
So in part 2 of this interview, I want to talk about the style, because if you have substance as the bedrock of what you do, the ability to read the notes, the mathematics of music, and also to be able to have the attitude, then I think it's okay to add the brand and the style and everything else. It's centred on something. And I think you have worked with some very stylish musicians and also bring your own style to jazz through a bit of dance and interaction, which is unusual in the art form. But I mean, you studied at the Paisley School of Funk. Could you tell us something about what you learned from that in terms of, I know you said that you graduated, you learned about business and all sorts of things, but I mean, what really can you learn by going into the top university of music in the world?
I think like the first thing I can say that we learned being there, or what I grabbed from it, was being a gentleman. One of the first moments that I saw Prince when he entered the room, he was helping a lady colleague down the stairs, and I was like, wow, chivalry's not dead. So, it was like, I thought it was very polite, it was very gentleman of him to do that, and just kind of picked up for a lot of the guys that didn't grow up that way. In the South, we teach that. And I've learned that, to open a door for a lady, pull a chair out for her, all this other good stuff that, our parents taught us in the South. But that was one of the first lessons outside of the music, and I thought that was great. I think that every musician needs to be a gentleman. They need that school of ethics.
They're as important, if not more important.
Oh,
when
yeah.
you get to that level, I think it's easy to lose yourself, isn't it?
It's very easy because most of the time musicians that achieve a certain level of success, they require people to cater to them, like, oh, it's all about me, I'm a star. But like, I didn't get that from him. It was almost like, hey, I've done all this stuff, but I can still be a gentleman. And to me, that's impressive, to be as high as he is but still keep a lot of the traits that people adore and admire.
And I know that he has a particular mania or perfectionist gene for himself, but he doesn't spread that to others, because he's very keen on first takes, isn't he? And using naive, what you might call mistakes, but they're not mistakes, are they? I mean, could you say something about his attitude to taking risks, because he's unusual in that respect, isn't he, as well?
Yeah, he loves that first instinct when recording.
That instinctive thing.
Very seldom have I done second or third takes. Very, 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 very few of those. Because, I mean, the one lesson I learned, I think the first time I actually got to record a solo, I didn't like it. I was like, hey, can I record that again? He was like, it was perfect. It was your first instinct. Because when it's your first instinct, you're not thinking too much about it. You're like playing, well, actually you are thinking about it, but you're playing less. That's what I should say. You're like taking more of a careful choice of notes. Because most jazz musicians or most musicians want to just show off and when if you're kind of listening through, then you play, it makes sense. in what you're playing.
Yeah, because I mean, I can't prove this through science. But it doesn't matter. I mean, after the seventh take of anything, it sort of goes over, doesn't the other side?
It does.
Is that how that works?
Well,
I don't know if it works for everyone like that. But if you keep going at something,
yeah, I mean, most musicians, I don't care how much you've studied, what you played the first or second time is usually probably
The
it.
one.
Yeah, once you get to that 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th take, I don't know anyone that has that much library. You know, maybe Branford, he's endless. But yeah.
and another thing that you also, but both of you, particularly skilled and adept at, is
Mhm.
improvisation. But you're also coming from that from the point of view of knowing the mathematics.
Mhm.
How do you escape from the mathematics to do an arpeggio and a wonderful, just sort of straight out of probably here as
Mhm.
much as there? How do you escape from the head and get to the heart? Do you know?
Yeah, well, it's all you have to know a song. It's good to listen and do the first take stuff, but if you know a song, you know where it's going. You can more so live in the song because you're familiar with it. Almost like you live at home and you know where the kitchen is. You can almost go in without even looking and walk. Oh, my glasses are here, my forks are there. Once you know the song, you're familiar with it. You can kind of live in it and kind of move your way around. You
So
know,
is that like sort of immersion or
Mhm.
just spending time with the thing until
Yeah.
you've forgotten yourself?
yeah, yeah.
So that's a sort of unconscious competence, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah,
That
yeah.
state of easy
Mhm.
mastery.
Yeah.
Do you know how to do it? Because if you did, I think there'd be a big queue of people to come and
Yeah.
help you explain it to them.
Most of the music that I play, I've heard that type of chord or structure before. So when I hear it, it's familiar to me, and I can play something that I know is going to come across right. It's not going to be too sour to the ear, and it's going to be sweet sounding.
And what about stuff that is dissonant or sour? Then, if you do make a mistake, do you do that thing that some jazz musicians do, repeat it until it goes right?
Well, yeah, if I make a mistake, I may go back and play it again and make an intentional mistake.
Yeah.
You know, da-ba-da-da, da-ba-da-da-da-da. You know, you'll play that
Until-
note, you know, and like put really
Goes
emphasis
in.
on it. So yeah, you take lemons and make lemonade. You know, you do that in music.
Now, I know also you work with a number of other people, Sheila E. and what
Mhm.
have you, and some people in the White House.
hmm
Do you want to tell us anything about the White House?
Yeah, we had an opportunity to play for the president and First Lady Obama.
He's a big fan of this sort of stuff, isn't he?
He is. It was a great, incredible opportunity to meet him. A few times in life I've been starstruck, and that was definitely one of them.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, oh man, the president. I've always seen him on TV, and it was just very, very cool to meet him. He was down to earth. He was a great, great, great guy.
But he's not like our president who would sit there.
Mhm.
He's involved,
Yeah,
isn't
very
he?
involved.
We haven't
First
got a
lady.
president, by the way. But never mind.
But First Lady and President Obama were very, very, very
They really love it.
hospitable. Yeah, you know, they treated us like, you know, we were family. Everything was great. You know, and Stevie Wonder came through and played with us for a little bit.
Oh, well.
Yeah, we played some music for them, and they danced, and, you know, we had a couple of celebrities in the building. It was just a great time.
Okay. So, albums,
Mm-hmm.
tea, coffee,
Mhm.
wine,
Yeah.
anything you want to tell us about
Yeah.
the future?
Well,
or the present, indeed.
Well, I don't get bored with music, but I get bored with myself. So I try to figure out other things that I can do, other interests that I have.
Mhm.
I love coffee. I like tea. I love wine. And I had this idea of collaborating music and beverages. And I have my own product line coming out this fall. The first of it is going to be coffee. And then the next, tea. And then the following after that is going to be wine. So we're releasing my own coffee product line this fall called
Mhm.
And Products. And products will have and coffee, and tea, and wine. So the and being music and wine, music and tea, music and coffee. And then the and is also playing off my last name, Anderson, A-N-D.
Mhm.
So it kind of has like a double entendre on that. So yeah.
Excellent. And the album?
The album,
We can get it on marcusanderson.net, is it?
yeah, it'll be available in October. We don't
Mhm.
have an actual release date yet, but yeah, the album will be called And Coffee, and you'll be able to get it on my website, marcusanderson.net, or the And Products website, and it'll be on iTunes and Amazon as well.
Okay. So, music,
Mhm.
tea, coffee, wine.
Mhm.
What's next?
I don't know. I gotta think about it. I gotta sleep on it.
Sleep on it.
See what crazy idea I get next.
Well, style meets substance.
Mhm.
Marcus Anderson, thank you for telling us all
Oh,
about you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.